It's still crazy that we got our first PlayStation 5 details this week out of nowhere, but we still don't know anything about the price of the system. Well, we got some extra info that hints at what that might be, and I will share my take as well. Plus, I wanted to take a look at some upcoming PS4 exclusives like The Last of Us Part 2 and Ghost of Tsushima, because those games are further away than I had hoped and I thought as well. So let's talk about that and one potential big unannounced PS4 game that Sony has been quietly working on as well. And we likely already know what that is, so let's get into it. A like on the video would be super appreciated, and let's go. Wired got the scoop on the big PlayStation 5 details. I of course already shared the most important details in my previous video, like the backwards compatibility with PS4 games. And the other big feature is of course the special SSD, so that games load almost instantly. But especially with that feature, an SSD, you immediately think, okay, but what is it going to cost? Especially because we of course want at least 500 gigs, or let's be honest, 1 terabyte would be even better. Games are getting bigger and bigger, and you would imagine that the same happens on the PlayStation 5. So yes, an SSD of 1 terabyte or even 500 gigs would already make this a pretty expensive system. Well, Peter Rubin, the man who was able to witness the dev kit of this new console, took it to Twitter to post a piece of the interview that he did not note in his article. So he asked about the launch price range, and Mark Cerny, the lead architect of course for the PlayStation 5 who showcased the system to Peter Rubin, says the following: I believe that we will be able to release it at an SRP, so suggested retail price, that will be appealing to gamers in light of its advanced feature set. Peter Rubin presses further, asking if it will be a bit more than we for example saw with the PS4, and then Cerny says, that's about all I can say about it. So it's still super fake for sure, they're not ready to talk about the games, the price yet, I can totally see that, but I totally think that the in light of its advanced feature set speaks volumes, and likely means that it will be a higher price than what we saw with the PS4 and PS4 Pro. Because saying that those systems, when they released, would have the advanced features for that time would not really be true. I mean, thanks to the absence of a 4K Blu-ray player and the fact that the PS4 Pro can hardly hit native 4K in many games, I think it was clear that they were holding back to hit that $399 price point, while with the PS5 they are really going all in from the looks of it, more like the Xbox One X did at the time as well, and that launched at $500. So I think that the PlayStation 5 is likely going to hit the $499 mark, and I think it will still sell out. Like, remember how hard it was to get a PS4 at launch, even months, maybe even a year, right? After launch, it was super hard to get this system, but they needed to win that generation, and now they have way more diehard fans that will totally buy one day one, especially after this amazing generation with games like God of War, Spider-Man and Horizon, games that will all get a sequel that will be playable on this new hardware. Over on the Kinda Funny forums, we got a developer with a degree in computer science breaking down the specs of this new PlayStation, saying that the Ryzen 3 line of CPUs is super powerful and that it's apparently really good at multitasking as well, so maybe we can have multiple games open at once. I'm just speculating here, but that could be something that this new system is capable of. Either way, I think we can all agree that this is going to be a powerhouse, and I would gladly pay more for that, because this will be a system that will be with us for years and years to come. And even if you can't join on launch day because you don't have the money or don't want to upgrade yet, then I think you're fine with the PS4 for a long time as well. Because we got multiple new games coming out on both systems, like games that I want to talk about right now. So yes, I think that $499 is going to be the price of the PlayStation 5. Nothing is confirmed, but I think that that is what he's hinting at. The advanced feature set that Cerny is talking about really makes me think of the Xbox One X, and that one launched at $499 as well and has been doing pretty well. They will just have the hardcore fans buy this console first and still release games on both systems and then slowly transfer to the next generation. Want instant load times and the better graphics? Then play on the PS5, otherwise you are fine with the PS4 version. It also looks like the announced games that we know about that are still coming to the PS4 will take longer than expected. The Last of Us Part 2 showed up at the coming soon section on the PlayStation Europe website alongside games like Days Gone, Rage 2, Crash Team Racing, all games that are going to hit this year. So then people immediately started speculating that The Last of Us Part 2 might be coming in 2019 as well. I never believed it, as you might know if you watched my previous videos, and I still think it's super unlikely, because Neil Druckmann, the writer of course on The Last of Us Part 2, very recently posted this shot of him finishing the final scene of the game. So yes, they're close to being done, but if they just mocapped the final scene of the game, then I find it very hard to believe that they would launch the game in 5 months or something. And Sony typically stays out of the October, November and December months for their big games, so I don't see them launching that then as well. Also, the mocap for Laura Bailey has just wrapped up. She will play an still unknown character. We saw her in the Violent Paris Games Week trailer, but we still don't really know who she is. But again, with her just being done and Naughty Dog having no need to hurry this game out of the door, I think they will just take their time and likely release it somewhere in 2020. Maybe original Last of Us style, so summer 2020, and then we get the PlayStation 5 in the fall of that year. Another game that is very likely further away than I really thought and also hoped, Ghost of Tsushima, as they're looking right now for a narrative writer to help create engaging narrative content for their upcoming project Ghost of Tsushima. The last game from Sucker Punch, infamous Second Son and First Light, the standalone DLC, both released in 2014. They should have been working on this game for 5 years now, so I had hoped that we were closer to the release. 5 years is not unprecedented though for a new IP, but right now they're still looking for someone to write missions for their open world game. It kind of makes me worried that this game isn't even going to hit 2020. Sony is really giving their studios all the time they need. Look for example at Days Gone, that has been in development for 6 years, maybe even more, something like that. That's great, but it does mean that we have to wait a really long time to see them release. And I really thought that early 2020, 6 years after infamous Second Son, was a pretty safe bet, but now I really think otherwise. And I think this also is what Sony meant with the quote that we will get a gentle PS4 to PlayStation 5 transition, with games launching on both platforms. Ghost of Tsushima will still likely launch before the PlayStation 5, but could now also be launching after this next hardware. And we have The Last of Us Part 2 in this same time period as well, let alone Death Stranding. That is likely even further away than both games. So yes, that one of those big games is coming out this year is extremely unlikely. I think The Last of Us Part 2 for 2020 makes a ton of sense, but Ghost of Tsushima and Death Stranding, maybe 2021. But maybe there will be something else to fill that PS4 exclusive gap. Colin Moriarty, who used to work at IGN and then later started Kinda Funny and now does a PlayStation podcast called Sacred Symbols, has his sources in the gaming industry. He wrote big pieces on major studios like Naughty Dog and also Insomniac. And for these big articles, he of course interviewed a ton of people. And now he has been teasing this second-party Sony game for a while now. So he first noted on Twitter that there's still a fairly substantial PS4 exclusive yet to be announced from a second party. And then as reported by Gaming Bolt, Colin said on his Knockback podcast that we haven't seen the last of Ratchet and Clank on the PS4. And now on his latest Sacred Symbols podcast that is only available for patrons right now, I just listened to it and only thought that it was interesting. So what he says is that there are still unannounced PS4 games in development and that he knows one specifically that people are going to be excited about. And I think that if you put the puzzle pieces together in combination with the fact that Colin knows people from Insomniac, and Insomniac is of course a second party studio, I think it's a pretty safe bet that we will see another Ratchet & Clank on the PS4. The game sold very well. It was the most successful Insomniac game before Spider-Man of course came along. And according to rumors, they only worked less than a year on this Ratchet PS4 game. It was of course also a reboot, so I hope that this will be a completely new title. Although I did like what they did and it really changed the game up a lot. And they will likely have way more time this time around. There will likely not be a movie releasing around the same time. That movie kinda sucked sadly. Of course, totally let me know if you are up for a new Ratchet & Clank. It's really one of my favorite franchises. I played all the PS2 games, the PSP one, even the Tower Defense one on the PS3. Tools of Destruction was the first game that I bought with my PS3 alongside the first Assassin's Creed, so great times. So yes, hopefully this rumor is true and we indeed get a new one. I can totally see that game also hit this year if it's already far enough in development. I actually made a video on this potential next Ratchet game 2 years ago based on job listings that suggested that they were working on the new Ratchet game. So with Sony likely having a ton of titles for 2020, maybe a 2019 release is not that weird. I'll of course keep you up to date here on the channel. So yes, a lot of interesting developments recently, kind of said about The Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima. But in the end, it will of course make the game better. Take the time you need. And we actually got a big PS4 exclusive coming up, Days Gone. I'm already playing it. I cannot tell you anything about it yet, but I will be able to do that soon, and we'll have a ton of content on that game. So totally subscribe for everything PlayStation 5 and news on the big PS4 exclusives, including the Days Gone content. Like the video to support the channel, and check out that big PS5 video going over everything we know right now if you haven't already, or my recent Horizon 2 video where we talked about an actor leaking the game. And there's way more in that video. For now, I will speak to you next time, and goodbye.